Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Daily Word. This Daily Word on this Friday, March 11th. Glad you could join me for our few minutes together. Sounds like old man winter isn't done with us yet. Going to get a little snow today, but that's okay. It's March, and it's Ohio, so we're used to all of that. So, we are approaching the 2-year anniversary of this pandemic and where it all began. And I remember these early conversations that we had at St. Paul's, and Rod and Randy and Ronnie and I had about what it meant to protect people. And we closed the church and went strictly online and all of that. And hopefully in 2 years, we've learned a lot. And I'm currently working on a document about what I've learned and what I think we've learned, or hopefully learned, through this pandemic and as we've lived it together. And so I'm hoping that I'll have that document done and send it out with the Monday email that comes every week. If you're interested in seeing that document, what I have to say about what I think we've learned in the midst of this and what the future holds for us, but you don't get the email and you want to see it, just let me know, and I'm be glad to share it with you. Just some musings and learning and some round table kind of thing about what I've learned and what hopefully we've learned moving forward. And I thought about that in relation to today's text and what this has meant for us. To live through this and to share our lives together and figure out, what it means for us to live together in these difficult days. And so I'm using the devotional today. It's the United Church of Christ devotional called The Long Haul. And it's a daily kind of thing that I really enjoy. It's one of the 3 that I read every morning. So this one is, the scripture is Psalm 27, 11 through 13. And the title of this devotional is No Human Enemies. And when I opened to the page this morning, about, 7 o'clock or so this morning, and read it, I thought, yeah, maybe that's what we have learned or should have learned during this pandemic that I don't think we've learned yet. And it's going to take us a while, maybe, to learn about this. So, Psalm 27, 11 through 13 says this: Teach me your way, O Lord, and lead me on a level path because of my enemies. Do not give me up to the will of my adversaries, for false witnesses have risen against me, and they are breathing out violence. I believe that we shall see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Yes, and Joe, I'll make sure that you get a copy of it. So, it's interesting that this psalm talks to us and references numerous references to enemies. What begins as kind of a statement of faith quickly shifts to a litany of fears about enemies. So I got to thinking about that. So I wondered, in all of my life, in my 58 years, I wondered who my enemies have been, or who my enemies are today, or who my enemies might be. Now, I have to tell you, when I was in high school, when we were freshmen, we were still in the middle school. We weren't in high school yet, but every day we walked over to the high school for VOAG classes because we could as freshmen. And I don't know, there were 6 or 8 of us, I suppose, I don't remember the number, who walked over every day. But every day we were threatened by this one man, older than us. I call him a man, this person who was in high school, who was older than us, who threatened us to beat us up. For some reason, we were his enemies. And so one particular day, he chose one of us, it wasn't me, he chose one of us to carry out his threat. And he beat up pretty severely one of my classmates. Got him off by himself somehow. In a group, we were kind of safe, but he got him off by himself somehow and beat him up pretty severely. And it was the first I really thought about, and as I look back, thought about what enemy means. And then, you think about today, about who your enemies might be. I really can't put a name to it or even think about who my enemy might be. I'm sure there's somebody who just doesn't like me, period, who might consider themselves my enemy. I don't know. Or in the future, who that might be. But here we are with this psalm that reminds us that we are called to know God in a unique and close and intimate kind of way, and to live in God's peace in this kind of way. But I'm convinced, however, that our biggest obstacles to living in peace are not necessarily other people. Now, we are in our culture, as you well know, we are quick to make the opposite side of who we are our enemies. Especially we like to do it in the United States right now for some reason. We just like to do that politically. If a person is on the other side of the aisle from us, they are quickly our enemy without any thought for who they are or who they might be or what they're trying to do in life. It seems to me that what makes us have perceived enemies, as the writer of this devotional says, are these long-standing systems that we live in that are built on greed and exploitation and domination. And somehow we take sides when instead, as the psalmist says to us, we're called to look for and to live like and to be about, as the psalmist says, I believe that I shall see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. I wish we would not succumb to the temptation to cast other people, no matter who they are or how different they are from us, skin-wise or nationality or politically, that we wouldn't cast them as siblings, but instead look for the goodness of God in the land of the living. I think that's what Lent calls us to. I think Lent calls us to look for God's very presence in the land of the living. To look for God to move and shape us. To not make us enemies, no matter how different we are. What separates us based on all kinds of things. Race, creed, religion, politics. We should stop so quickly making the person on the other side of the aisle, whatever that is that separates us, our enemy. But instead, look for the goodness of God in the land of the living. I'm just convinced, and I remain convinced, and I've been convinced, and I'll never stop being convinced, that if you and I, no matter what our differences are, if you and I collectively decided we're not going to be enemies, and that whoever's in the White House, or whoever's in Congress, or whoever's in the mayor's seat, or whoever our neighbor is, or whoever makes a bold statement, if we just decided quickly, honestly, and fervently, look, they're not going to be my enemy. We're going to find ways to work together to make sure of what the psalmist says, that the goodness of the Lord shall be seen in the land of the living. Look, I'm convinced that we're never going to see goodness until we figure it out together. And the psalmist is so clear for us. In this devotional, there is a person who writes the psalm this way. Teach me to be love as you are love. Lead me through each fear. Hold my hand as I walk through the valleys of doubt each day, that I may know your peace. I believe that I shall know the realm of heaven of love here on earth. We do that best. We honor God's presence with us and God's call on us best when we link arms and when we share our lives together to find common ground in the midst of what separates us. I thought a lot about this, and I don't know. I suppose that we all could have enemies in the world. I'd like to think that, we don't have many. I'd like to think I don't have any, but I would guess that's not true. Or that I won't have any in the future, but I would assume that's not true. But that in spite of that, in spite of the differences, that we would together believe. And here's what the psalmist says. I believe that I shall see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. I believe it too. It's not a pie in the sky thing. It's not something that's way out there, but it's also not something that's unattainable. If you and I would put our minds to it. That's what I've tried to share. Today's number 495, Daily Word number 495. It's what I've tried to share for almost 2 years with us. That collectively, together, if we link arms, stop finding enemies, that we'll make the world a better place. And I'm going to continue to believe that until there's nothing left in me to believe. So, that's my word, the daily word for today, that we're going to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living because we're going to find ways to do it together. So, I pray you'll know of God's love today and that you'll too believe that we'll see the goodness of God in the land of the living. I'm headed off to the doctor here in a few minutes, still dealing with this incision that just won't heal like it's supposed to. So back to the doctor again in just a few minutes to see what he says about this crazy incision of mine. It doesn't look better, but maybe he'll think it's better. So look forward to seeing you Sunday morning at 10:15 as we worship together. You can join us in person. You can join us via Facebook Live. And then Monday morning at 10 o'clock, we'll gather again for another week of our daily word. Know of God's love and my love for all of you. Have a great day.